Hi, and welcome to this Mad Academy course, All Tigers Have Stripes. I am Ankur Kalita, Executive Creative Director at 6 Mile India, and I welcome you to this course in which over the next 10 weeks we will look at the different aspects of advertising. I'll try to give you examples of great work, some life lessons that I have got, and together we will explore more about advertising as we know it and where it can be. Today we will discuss the first chapter of our lesson journey. It's called All Tigers Are Born Cubs, which is a universal truth. Like us people, we are born as babies. We don't become a grown up the day we are born. We develop slowly. But the seed, the germ of what we become is perhaps molded to a great extent in the way we are born. So similarly, to take the analogy back to advertising, a great ad or a bad ad is born out of a good or bad brief. Mostly, there are instances when the brief isn't really necessary or is often ignored by great creative people, but those are exceptions, and we today will talk a little more in depth about the rules of advertising as we know it, where the brief plays a key role in shaping creative, and why both planning and creative, and of course add to that the mix of the account management guy, everyone should come together and smash, create a great brief. Let's now go to the fundamentals of a brief. What really make the fundamentals of a brief? That's the first point I would like to come to. A brief is, as Sir John Haggerty said, it is the first ad in a campaign. The brief has to have some pull, some power, so that your creative, if you're a planner, your creative team, or if you're an account manager, your creative team, everybody should be excited about it and look at it as a product that you buy into. If you don't buy into a brief, or your partners, your friends in the creative team don't buy into your brief, there might be a problem with that. So let's deep dive into the first structures of what makes a fundamental brief. Of course, if you go to say a Ogilvy or a Dentsu or a Gray Worldwide or Crispin Porter, all these agencies will have different formats, different ways of crafting a brief. Most global agencies have their proprietary systems where they define the brief in a certain way. Some look for tension, some call it the shift, it's blah blah blah. But there are certain things that are constant. They might be called something else. Maybe in Korea they will be called something else. Maybe in UK they will be called something else. Yeah. In India we might call it something else. But there are certain fundamentals to a brief, and those fundamentals are essential, and I believe if we get them in place as planners, as creative people, as account managers, a great part of the brief, or rather the campaign, is solved. So let us begin the journey with the most fundamental question that we should aim to answer. What is the goal of this brief? What do you want to achieve with it? Of course, if you were to ask the client, most clients would say that this brief or this ad campaign is meant to increase sales. After all, sales is everything. But that's not the immediate impact that an ad will have. Sales have many things in their mix, as in the conversion of a sale has many things into the mix, whether you're in the right place at the right price at the right moment, whether you have a compelling idea of the brand or product which induces people to buy. There are many things into the mix. And an ad is seldom the do it, be it all of selling. So if we were to ask in terms of briefing, what is an ad supposed to do, or what is the goal of an ad, and somebody says sell, that is not the correct answer or the right lens to view a briefing session. We should rather concentrate on another aspect of it, which is how this brief will impact people. How will it impact buying behavior? How will it influence numbers, influence sales, or influence brand love? Will it increase consumption for people? Will it show a different opportunity to sell? Will it create instances where the product was never used before by consumers? So we have to define what the goal is. The easy answer, as I said, is sales. But sales are a very sad goal to have. I'll now take you through two ads. One is a print ad and the other is a TV ad. Each product, of course, they wanted to sell more, but they had the same, they are from different categories, I must add here. They had the same USP, if you might call it that. One was the world's lowest priced car, the Tata Nano, which launched in India, I think around 14 years ago. And the other was the low cost airline Indigo, again in India, which was cheap and perhaps cheaper than all the others, because most at that time flying was still premium and most people used to travel on full service airlines. That's when Indigo came. It was the second or third low cost player. They came into the business with a really cheap product. However, they were not talking about cheapness. They wanted to make a sale. But before we deep dive into those two ads, first let us have a look at it.
When our chefs wake up on time, our kitchen works on time. When our kitchen works on time, the food leaves for the plane on time. When the hostesses wake up on time, they do their makeup on time. They look oh so pretty on time. When our ground force does their work on time, our pilots take off on time. People get to meetings on time. We get our work done on time. And when we get our work done on time, we become the world's most powerful economy on time. On time is a wonderful thing.
So those were the two ads. Let's get into the Tata car ad first. What a compelling proposition. What a mind-blowing proposition for the agency planner, creatives, the client, brand managers, everybody. This is the world's cheapest car. And how can people resist that? They cannot resist it. It's the cheapest car available. Just leave your motorcycles or your scooters, bicycles even, and just go and buy this cheap car which will give you comfort, will fit into your budget. But this so-called compelling proposition to sell didn't work out really well, because the sales never really took off. Despite the hype, the millions of dollars spent on advertising this, the great PR the company got, they couldn't really keep the product going in terms of sale numbers, and slowly but surely the brand died. And now today you can't buy any new Tata Nano cars because the model has been discontinued. The cheapest car, what a great proposition to sell. It didn't work. On the other hand, Indigo, they were not talking about price at all. They were not talking about sales. They were selling an attitude, a reason why consumers should choose them. And they did it in a very likable, lovable way. They told consumers, you are not cheap because you chose a cheap airline. You chose our airline because you value time. You know the value of time. You are a value consumer. You're getting something out of that. You're saving time, and time is money. Of course, you're saving more because we are a low-cost airline, but that's out of the window. Let's not talk about that. So it's two ads with the same proposition at the core of, if I may call it again, value. The value consumer will be attracted to it. But one is talking on a higher plane, which gives it the edge. And really also, it gave the brand Indigo an edge. And today it is the largest airline in India, and perhaps one of the largest low-cost airlines in the world today in terms of the number of flights, the passengers, the number of aeroplanes they own. So it's a success story that's built on not looking at the short-term sale picture, but giving consumers a reason to buy into their product. Now, we have done the first question, which is what is the goal of this ad? Then we go into who is it for. It's very easy to get some research agencies database and just say male, female, 25 to 45, SCCA, earning this much, lives in a metro, consumes Instagram, etc., etc. That's very superficial. You need to think of consumers as people. Who is going to buy that chocolate? Who is going to buy that computer? Who's going to use that computer to do something for their lives? Will they be watching football, or will they be using that computer to go out and get a job, to study? If you try to create an image of a person, not only some data statistic, it will help you find a more compelling proposition later on for the brief. So try to paint a picture as a planner also. Try to write a story around the life of the ideal consumer. Who is that lady who will use your lipstick? Will she be always using your lipstick when she is happy? Or will she be using that lipstick sometimes when she is sad and she wants to sort of hide her sadness and add some color to life with a lipstick? If you were to approach it that way, bring your data points to life, create a person, an image of a person, a story of a person, then you'll be much better served by the brief. We have done with what, we have done with who. Now let's go to where. Where do you connect with your consumer? You are selling headphones to a 16-year-old. You can't go to a newspaper ad to meet him or her. She won't read a newspaper, or very rarely do 16-year-olds read newspapers anymore. So you have to be where the consumer is. If your brief says this person is on Spotify, your creative team would have that leverage, and they will think of ideas that bring the brand, the brief alive on Spotify. We have done what, we have done why, we have done where, and chances are you think I'll talk about how to do it. But let's not get into how right now, and just bring in another what, and that is, what's the proposition? The proposition is the soul of the brief. It is the seed from which a great or a bad ad campaign will come to life. And a proposition, in other words, is what is that argument? What is that emotion? What is that fact? What is that aspect of the product or your brand that will connect consumers, convert them to loyalists? What will it spark in a consumer's mind when he or she finds a rendition of that proposition? A proposition can be a very simple thing, like this car runs at 150 miles an hour. It's the fastest car in the world. Or, and I'm sure some great looking ad can be made out of that proposition. You show a car screaming down a racetrack or a highway, open highway, and it'll look good. You shoot in slow motion, intercut with fast shots, helicopter shots, the dust flying, and it'll look a nice ad. But nice isn't nice enough. But if you were to craft a proposition in a different way and say, this car makes life look slow. If this car makes life look slow, is it that you get into speed dating? Is it that you want a hypercharged super turbo engine for your mixer grinder? Do you want to add a jetpack to your pet dog? The same RTB, if you may call it, the reason to believe that this is a very fast car, can be a statement of a fact, boring statement of a fact, which will perhaps lead to a very okay creative, or it could spark a new thought, a new way of looking at speed, cars altogether, by bringing in some sort of tension, emotion, drama into your advertising. That concludes the first segment of this class. The second aspect that we are going to discuss here in the class today is the importance of discussing a brief. It's better, before you sort of write down the brief, to have preliminary discussions. Once the brief or the marketing advertising task comes from the client, have a chat with your creative partner, have a chat with the account management. Maybe the three teams should get together for a quick coffee or some beer. Talk about it. Talk about the problem the client is facing, or the opportunity that any brief can create. And keep talking. What is the goal of the brief? Maybe that is the first session. Who will you target? That's the second session you have, a quick chat. Maybe you can just meet around the water cooler and have some water, hydrate yourself, and ask, where do we meet our consumers? And that's how the brief will quickly be amplified. The power of the brief will be amplified, because not just the planner, not just the account management guy, not just the creative guy, all the ladies and gentlemen in the team, they come together. And when more minds come to work, different perspectives come alive. So go, be a tiger, but don't forget that you were always born a cub, and the cub that you have here is the brief. So it's time to sign off from this class. See you on the next class. But before I go, I would like to share a couple of ads that have been really appreciated the world over. And why I'm showing these ads is because they were made after ignoring the brief. So when you create a brief, don't get really attached to it with super glue. Keep an open mind. Sometimes a better idea comes even after you have created a very good, great brief. As somebody said, nobody is perfect, nor is the brief. See you in the next class.
Voglio sentire, voglio
My
bene.
brother's a hero,
Perché è grande
a
uomo.
champion. He went to the games. He came fourth. But to the village, he was first.
Marco.
Everybody loves him. He's the reason I own a bar. After all this time, they still want to see him swim. Every year we have a mad race. When he reaches the buoy, I start the clock. Marco against the pint. They expect. I'm getting older, he says. One day I'll lose, he says. Don't worry, I say.
A uno.
You'll never lose. It takes 119.5 seconds to pour the perfect pint. But the best time is kept when you don't want your watch too tight. He waits. That's what he does. And I'll tell you what. Tick followed tock, followed tick, followed tock, followed tick. Ahab says, I don't care who you are, here's to your dream. The old sailors return to the bar. Here's to you, Ahab! And the fat drummer hit the beat with all his heart. Here's to waiting.